Okay, everybody, serious teching here. You can tell I'm serious because I got my arms crossed. I gotta say, this whole god business in the story is getting ridiculous. We got sun gods. Yeah, that's right, plural. Multiple sun gods in this story. And during Skypiea, we learned about earth gods, and rain gods, and forest gods. And we also have a war god, and we also have ocean gods, and we also have Eneru gods. Are there any other gods in this story that I should know about? Don't you dare. God Usopp! Might as well throw Buggy in there too. Why not, right? Absolutely. Okay, so technically speaking, in the last chapter, chapter 1182, we did not get the arrival of an actual rain god. We got the manifestation of the interpretation of the rain god via Killingham's memories. Is that a little confusing? Kind of. But it's okay, because the rain god is probably actually going to show up at some point. I'm thinking at this point, in this juncture of the story, all of the gods, like the legitimate sun god and the actual rain god Zaza, which, by the way, just a quick caveat to that, I've been seeing from a lot of fans out there commenting on the review that Zaza is also a term that is used to describe certain types of grass, if you catch my meaning, and I think you do. So in which case, if you got the Zaza, now it's time to bust it out, I suppose. Anyway, during the first Age of the Gods. Let's just go with it, right? In a lot of mythologies, that's kind of where it all begins. In a lot of different interpretations of this, the very beginning, when the planet was formed, in the creation myths, that is when gods lived, right? And then slowly but surely, the gods all left the earth to humanity. And there's a bunch of different versions of this, okay? So let's say there was an actual sun god Nika, and there was an actual Zaza, and then, you know, the forest deity was there too, the earth or land deity, the mountain deity. Actually, there is a mountain god. Odin killed it, except he actually didn't kill it. It was the boar at Wano. Odin was so skilled at actually slicing the thing in half, they actually just stitched it back together. That's canon, right? So that's another deity, right? So the first age is all the deities lived, and then something happened, some kind of world-ending cataclysm, maybe Ragnarok occurred. I don't know. There was a tournament, something happened, right? I think by the time we're getting into the second age, there weren't gods anymore. And then now we're in the third age, the furthest removed from this god age, all right? Now, where did all the gods go? I think they might have turned into mythical Zoans. You know, maybe not the actual deities, but their powers might have been taken from them and then manifested into devil fruits. And that's where we get Luffy's Hito Hito no Mi mythical model, Nika. And that's probably also where we get the Daibutsu that Sengoku has. And maybe even Yamato's Okuchi no Makami, which is the guardian deity of Wano, right? Every devil fruit, Ratatotsuker, the mythical ice squirrel, the Riso Riso no Mi, the squirrel fruit we found out in the last chapter, right? All that stuff could have been actual deities that lived during the first age, and then they got turned into devil fruits, or their powers at least got turned into devil fruits, and then they were passed down, and now here we are at the very end of the third age, where these gods are still players on this giant chessboard, or Reversi board, or Othello board, whatever board game reference you want to make. And considering that's the case, since we have Dragon, who is mentioned to be the most wanted man in the entire world, and in this chapter, Killingham mentions that the celestial dragons, even the God's Knights, who are like the biggest badasses right underneath the Gorosei, right? And then Imu himself, right? Killingham was like, we are terrified of the idea of rain falling on our heads. And so we are afraid of Zaza. Growing up in Marijois, the celestial dragons were told stories like the boogeymen of the celestial dragons were the gods of rain and the sun, and the D clan and things like that. Oh yes, the clan of D, led by Joy Boy, the manifestation of the sun god. If you run into him, he'll turn into a sun and he'll burn you or something. I don't know what the exact bedtime stories were, but they probably were not pleasant, okay? So with that all being said, and since Dragon is the most wanted man in the world, I'm going to assume mythical Hito no Mi model Zaza is probably what Dragon has. A lot of people have pointed this out. This isn't even really a video to discuss Dragon's Devil Fruit ability specifically. I'll probably talk about that at another time. This is more of like a general roundup for the chapter. I am going to Japan tomorrow from when you are watching this. So I filmed a bunch of videos in advance about a particular series, and so you'll be seeing those. I will be filming stuff while I'm in Japan. There's no chapter this week, which I know a lot of people are disappointed in that because One Piece kind of left off on a cliffhanger there, but like for me, I'm like, whew, I don't have to worry about that until the week after. So for me, that actually worked out kind of well. But yeah, so yeah, that's probably most likely Dragon's ability. When Dragon first appeared at Log Town, there was also the sound effect of a very heavy downpour, okay? And so you can equate his abilities to being wind or storms or lightning or rain. Rain kind of, precludes the existence of clouds. We saw rain clouds forming at the end of the last chapter. It wasn't like Zaza was just spewing water. It wasn't like a water elemental. I mean, the form that it's in right now is essentially a water elemental that Killingham conjured, but also clouds were there. I'm assuming lightning and thunder. It's all part of that. It's all rain has to exist via the clouds. It's a storm deity is essentially what it is. Like Susanoo, I suppose, right? So that's what we're working with right now. Now, something else very interesting that Killingham brought up that I didn't really address it too much in the review, but it got me thinking because this is very important. Killingham mentioned the reason why the Celestial Dragons fear Zaza so damn much is because the idea of rain falling on their heads. And they mentioned living in Marijois, they never have to worry about rain because they are above the clouds. Okay, now this is a really big deal. This is actually a huge deal because we don't, to this day, know how high up the red line is. I've said this before a million times, but, this might be the first time you're watching the video, so let me just give you a quick recap, okay? From sea level all the way down to Fishman Island, it is 10,000 meters. Okay, so that metric has been charted. We know that. We do not know the number from sea level all the way up to Marijois. We do not know how high up that is. We assume it's really high up, but we don't know. Okay? We know that the White Sea is 10,000 meters above sea level, and the White Sea is 7,000 meters above sea level. So I always kind of assumed that the red line, Marijois, was somewhere between 5,000 to 7,000 meters up, because I feel like any higher than that, and like the people like the God's Knights and the Celestial Dragons would be at like constant war with like different sky clans and everything like that, is what I assumed. From what Killingham said, that actually might not be true. That it actually might be above 7,000 meters. It might be so high up it's above the clouds. It might even be, comparable to Skypiea, So how is that possible? Well, remember that there aren't just sky islands everywhere when you go 10,000 meters up. There has to be clouds up there, right? There's not always clouds. There's a specific kind of cloud that kind of like fossilizes and stays in place, and that's like the island cloud. That's like the foundation where Skypiea and Angel Island and Upper Yard and everything were at, okay? But the idea is that there's different spotty locations. Like Weatheria is just floating around out there. You know what I mean? Weatheria, like if you just jumped off Weatheria, I don't think you're going to land in the White Sea. I think you're just going to fall to the Blue Sea, right? The Weatheria, the island, has to like move itself around to actually like connect to the White Sea and stuff like that, right? So there's actually a really easy explanation for this on why, the God's Knights and the Celestial Dragons are not at constant war with the sky races that live around. Because they're not around anymore. Because when the world government took over like 800 something years ago, they cleared out the area around the red line, if you get my meaning, and I think you do. The Lunarians lived up there before the world government took over, and they had wings. They had black wings that looked very similar to the Bjerkins' wings, like Rouge, for instance, and all of Eneru's priests. Eneru originally also probably had wings that looked similar to that before he ripped them off, right? So they kicked out and wiped out all the Lunarians. We only know that Albert is left. There might be a few others, but for right now, King is the only one that we know is still around. Imu Narona, I guess, also is still around. He has the black wings as well, so he's also most likely a Lunarian. But any other sky civilization that existed probably within like 100 square kilometers of Marijois was probably wiped out a long time ago. All right, so long ago that like there's not very many people in the Blue Sea that even know that Sky Islands exist. Bellamy laughed about it, all of Mocktown laughed about it, but Mocktown laughs about everything. That's kind of the joke of Mocktown. When they were listening to Vegapunk's message, Vegapunk was giving them like, plate tectonic data, geology and all this kind of stuff on the earthquakes, and they were still laughing at him. This guy says earthquakes happen. What an idiot. That's kind of Mocktown, which is kind of funny in its own right. Wait. This guy says things are gonna flood. Flood? Who ever heard of a flood? It's like that bar in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie where just everybody's, yeah, that's Mocktown, right? Okay. But aside from Mocktown, a lot of other places in the world, even places that are like, Navy outposts and things, hadn't really heard or known about the Sky Islands. Does Akainu know that Sky Islands exist as the Fleet Admiral of the Marines? Yeah, probably. Outside of his jurisdiction. He doesn't give a shit, right? Okay. And it's like whatever happens up there, that's like a different continent, essentially, right? It's not under his purview. Do the Gorosei and the Celestial Dragons know that there's islands up here? Yeah, probably. And they're probably very careful if any of them, like, if Weatheria ever got close to Marijois, it might get shot down, right? Like, they might have methods to do that, all right? But I'm assuming that that's probably the situation there. Okay. So, we also have those two other deities that were brought up during Skypiea. Very important to mention this. I'm actually, you know what? I'm just going to grab the volume off my shelf because I want to read this directly from the Viz translation. All right, so this is going to be volume 31. This is going to be chapter 287, God Killing. All right, and it's about Nolan first arriving at Jaya for the first time during his adventures, right? And so the Shandorians that were living on the island were being stricken by a plague, which was later known as tree fever, okay? And the elder's dying breath, like there's an elder that's literally about to die, and he's like, please, pay tribute to the gods through the great Kashigami. I'm going to repeat that again. Pay tribute to the gods through the great Kashigami. I also read that on another version online, but I just wanted to make sure on the Viz version, okay? It still said that, okay? Blood. You must offer blood on the sacrificial altar. Offer the blood of the most beautiful maiden in the village to Kashigami. And that was, I always call her Mousse, like chocolate mousse, kind of mousse, that's her name. Okay, anyway, so there's some sad stuff with her. Her mom's upset because she's about to be sacrificed. Whatever, that's not important right now. Giant snake, okay? Giant snake shows up. That is just a giant snake. It's not a god. It doesn't have magical powers. It's just a really big snake, okay? But the people of Jaya, the Shandorians, do think that it is a god. Or they think it has the ability to commune with the deities, because as the Kashigami arrives at the sacred altar, skip ahead a little bit here, they're like, oh, great Kashigami, what a divine form you have. And then they begin to go through the different gods. God of the sun, God of the rain, God of the forest, and God of the earth. I've also seen God of the land, earth, same difference, right? Okay. So the way that I'm interpreting this is that I used to think the giant snake was worshipped as those four deities, like in one, like the embodiment or like the avatar. Maybe it could still be viewed that way. But from the way I'm looking at this now, it's like those deities are all separate deities. Okay, so Nika, sun god, Zaza, rain god. Not sure about the forest god. Might be Chopper. Chopper might be the avatar of the forest deity, since we're already introducing a bunch of gods in Elbaf. Why not? And then we have the god of the earth, which may in fact be, I've actually seen a lot of jokes. There's like a running thing going on right now that's really funny involving Buggy, because he always keeps his feet firmly on the ground. That's where he channels his power, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, sure, god of the earth is Buggy. I could also see, I honestly hesitate to say Imu Narona is one of these deities, or any of these deities for that matter, because Imu is so very clearly, overtly the devil, all right? But then again, Imu did also say to Loki, what's the difference between a god and the devil? Then again, that sounds like something the devil would say, so I don't know. But these are 4 separate deities. The Kashigami, the giant snack, they probably just assumed that it was like, oh, this is the gateway to the gods. Anything that this giant snake eats that lives amongst us on Jaya will be an offering seen directly to the deity themselves that they're paying tribute to, okay? So it's just really important to make that distinction, that the snake was not viewed as those 4 deities, it was viewed as just their connection to it. So when Nolan shows up, really badass, by the way, and slices this snake down, that's basically like severing the connection between the Shandorians and their deities. And they're like, well, now we'll never be cured. Okay, so yeah, they were pretty pissed at Nolan for that, right? By the way, do you guys remember what happens almost immediately after this? So Nolan goes out in the forest to go and try to save the people, right? Because he knows how to make the cure, because Nolan was a botanist. You know what happens to him? He gets stuck in a giant earthquake. Yeah. So like, and Kalgara shows up and he's like, serves you right, man. You pissed off the gods. Now Nolan is like, this was just a coincidence. You're thinking everything is godly. I don't know, man. Maybe the Earth God was fucking pissed. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe the Sun God and the Rain God and the Forest God weren't paying attention. They weren't in the office that day. But the Earth God was the one that was maybe going to help him out. And he's like, oh, a sacrifice through the Kashigami. All right, let's see what we got here. Nolan shows up, kills the Kashigami, and then Earth God is pissed off and is just like, you know what? Fuck that guy. I'm just going to send an earthquake to swallow him up. That'll show him what's what. And Kalgara's interpretation might have been right. Anyway, Kalgara does save Nolan. They eventually become friends, and the rest of that story happens there. So, as we all know, Skypiea is a microcosm of all of One Piece. We've all seen, the theories and everything like that. It all gets compressed down to Skypiea. Whatever the One Piece is, it'll probably be something that we saw in Skypiea. It'll all connect the dots eventually. Part of me also wonders, because, as a mangaka, you probably don't know how long your story is going to last. Oda famously said that One Piece was only planned to be about 5 years. And every story arc, Skypiea was right after Alabasta, right? So it was like a little over the 5-year mark. It was right around there. So I wonder if Oda made Skypiea just because he's like, okay, if we never get to this super grandiose story that that he wanted to write, then at least we have Skypiea. We have Skypiea to at least showcase what it's all about, right? Like the general vibe of what I was going for. And so, of course, One Piece continued, and here we are almost 30 years later, 29 years later, okay? So, yeah, interesting. So, there's more than just 4 gods, though. That is very, very important to mention, all right? And I'm not just talking about God, Usopp, and Buggy, okay? Loki said that he was the sun god, but he's also the user of the Needhog, which Jarl mentioned was the war deity of Elbaf. It was Kratos, basically, back in the day. The war god might have been named Elbaf. We're not 100% sure. But that's a war god. So that's 5. Then we also have several mentions to the ocean deity, Mother Ocean, Mother Nature, the Umibozu, the ocean deities. They were brought up a few times in the story. The whole point of devil fruits is that they are hated by Mother Nature. I guess you could interpret that as the earth deity, but that's kind of like, say, Mother Nature in the context of not just like dirt and soil and plant life, but like Mother Nature as in like the entirety of Blue Planet, like Gaia, okay, or something like that, right? You could look at it like that, although I think Gaia is really just land and plant life and stuff like that, right? So, but just encompassing all of it, okay? You can look at it that way, right? And then we have all these other deities that are mentioned, like the mountain god at Wano, and the Okuchi no Makami, that was a guardian deity that Yamato has, that devil fruit, right? There's all these little incidentals. Sengoku's Daibutsu is another one, right? All these little incidental deities that might pop up in the story, and now we kind of have to like kind of squint at those like god ideas and be like, is there an actual mountain god? Like, is there an actual, like, probably not the boar that Odin cut in half, but like, is there an actual mountain deity in the story? And then like the boar was just like called that, but like there's other deities? Because like now we're really expanding the pantheon here, right? And let me ask you a question. And this is something I haven't even come up with an answer to it myself yet, so it's totally okay if you haven't. I'm like going back and forth here, wondering what I would have preferred. Because yes, Oda did technically foreshadow the existence of these gods during Skypiea, but it was like one panel with like 4 little speech bubbles, and that was it. That was it. Like a rain deity has like yet to be mentioned up until the most recent chapter, right? Like is finally when the rain deity became relevant. And I'm wondering if I would have preferred Oda foreshadow these deities more. It's the same thing with the sun god, right? Like in the same arc, very like a 20 chapter difference when Who's Who is talking about the Gumu Gumu no Mi to Jinbei, talking about the sun god Nika, the first time we're learning the name Nika. Then like 20 chapters later, Luffy is the sun god. It's like, whoa, it's like it's okay, but at the same time it's like, wow, we're just learning, oh hey, there's this sun god. Oh yeah, Luffy, here you go. It's just like, yeah. So like in the live action, for instance, during Little Garden, Dory and Bragi actually directly mention the sun god by name back then. And I think it really is just an idea that, like, if Oda could go back and, like, do revisions to earlier chapters, you know, if, like, he could just go back and, like, hey, I'm going to redo Little Garden the way that I would have done it now. I mean, he's evolving as a writer, right? You can't expect and plan every single thing. I'm sure Oda had a general outline at the beginning that, like, yeah, I'm going to get gods involved in the later half or the later part of the story. But I feel like, yeah, if Oda rewrote or did some revisions for Little Garden right now, and in fact, he might have already done those, like, because they consult with Oda for the live action, I don't think that Dory name-dropping the sun god Nika during Little Garden in the live action would have passed unless Oda directly was like, yeah, you can do that. I think that's actually something he would have probably preferred. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, like name-dropping these deities way earlier on in One Piece, and now we have an idea, and now, like, if Nika was mentioned many years before, and then we find out that the Gumu Gumu no Mi is actually the sun god fruit, I think that would have been a way more, like, mind-blow kind of moment. Like, oh, that means that, you know, from all the times the sun god was mentioned into the story up until now, that means Luffy is the... Oh, and I think Luffy going into Gear 5th would have been a lot more, like, vivacious. I'm going to check the definition of that word really quick because I'm not sure if I'm using that correctly. Okay, vivacious. Someone, typically a woman, who is attractively lively, animated, and full of high spirits and energy. It suggests a charming, playful, and spirited personality rather than just being energetic. Except for being a woman, that applies to Luffy pretty well. So we'll just go with that, I suppose. Okay, why not? All right. But yeah, no, it would have made a lot more sense in that case. But let me know what you think. Maybe you think it worked out perfectly the way it did, that, you know, we're not really getting into the gods until now, and it's like only the hardcore fans that read Skypiea all the way through are the ones that, like, I knew there was going to be a rain god. I knew there was going to be a sun god at some point because of that one speech bubble in that one panel in that one chapter back in 2004. That could work too. Just let me know. And on the last note here on this video, I just want to say, since we are getting gods involved here at Elbaf, why not go all the way? Oda does like his comedy, and if there's one thing that's like a running gag from all the way back at the beginning of the story, it's Usopp telling his bullshit and the bullshit actually happening. Right? I fought a mighty mole monster, and he did it. I fought a giant goldfish, and he did it. His name is God Usopp. I'm just saying. At this point, it's okay. It's okay at this point if it turns out that a god comes down, like, and is like, ah, yes, I give my power to you, Usopp. Oh, dude. I have a... Oda, please do this, okay? I have a recommendation. Please do this. Can I put in a recommendation for One Piece? One Piece has like a suggestion box you could just put in. All right. All right. Actual deities are in play now. Could be any deity, though. Needs to give somebody their power. Maybe their devil fruit, or just become the avatar of their wrath or something like that. They have a particular person in mind, but something nonsensical and shenanigans happens, and then Usopp ends up being the one that gets the power. Like, I don't know. The typical way you could see this is like, I'm envisioning it, is like a god literally reaches down and is like, ah, yes, Jinbei, you will be the hammer of this god of the ocean. And, like, goes to zap Jinbei, but then Usopp walks by at the last minute. Hey, Jinbei, check this out. He's like, I have the power of Poseidon! And the ocean god is like, oh, shit, I didn't mean to hit that guy. Well, it'll probably work out. And then it does work out. Like something like that kind of feels like up Oda's wheelhouse, and I would love that. So there's my suggestion for One Piece. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I will be doing the next review while I'm in Japan. I'll actually be in Kyoto, I think, while that's happening, so that'll be fun. And I'll be doing other videos while I'm over there. I'm going to be staying over in Japan longer than I did last year when I went on break there. So going to have to film a few different things. But until then, enjoy like 6 videos on Hunter x Hunter that I made. So if you're a big fan of Hunter x Hunter, this is going to be your weeks coming up. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for all being great fans, as always. This will be Techie 101 signing out. And now I cross an ocean.